Hey there, this is Heidi from My Reading Life. Welcome back. This is going to be my introduction to my end of September reading vlog. I'm going to just go with it. This is the last week of September. I have a lot of reading I want to get done. I have some main scenery I want to share with you all. And so I figured I better film an introduction and talk about something bookish so it isn't just all nature scenery all the time. So I finished The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. I'd been reading this for the last week or so. This is a science nonfiction. It's a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness. So this book basically details Montgomery's experience learning about octopuses, and their amazing intelligence and how much they actually are aware of their surroundings and the people and other animals that they interact with. It was fascinating and heartwarming and delightful. If you like books about animals, I can't recommend this one highly enough. It's very readable. It's not at all like dry academic. This is really sort of written in a memoir kind of style. It's all about Montgomery's personal experiences. One thing I really enjoyed about this book, not just learning about octopuses, which is fascinating because they're highly, highly intelligent, and a lot of the things, I had read other nonfiction in the past about octopuses, but this book really brings it to life and really connects the octopuses to humans in a really cool way. Another thing I really like about this is Montgomery has a lot of her interactions with octopuses in the New England Aquarium in Boston, which I'm very familiar with. I've been many times. When I was in college, I was a teaching assistant for my marine biology class. Not my marine biology class, but the marine biology class that was offered at my college. And one of my jobs as the TA was to drive the van into Boston to take students to the New England Aquarium on different trips and lab things. So that was fun to revisit the aquarium. Also, this book talks about the Eastport Harbor exhibit, which is at the New England Aquarium. And Eastport, as some of you may remember, is the town where I went to high school and live like 20 minutes away from. And so I always am so excited that our little area of the world is has an exhibit at the aquarium, and it was cool to have it be mentioned in this book. So that was just a fun little connection for me. The other thing that was awesome was Montgomery talks about her experience learning how to scuba dive, and that she didn't just start scuba diving and found it super easy and then she was like totally into scuba diving. She struggled to learn that skill, and she still struggles, every time. Like, she has issues with it, but she continues to persevere to learn the skill and to continue to use the skill because she wants to interact with marine life in their own environment so badly. She's willing to deal with a lot of the problems she encounters just in order to be close to the animals. And this book really shows how little we know about critters, and especially critters in the ocean. Even after all these many years of studying, especially animals like the octopus, and we just learn more and more all the time about them. And this book really shows how humans can connect with animals and how important that is for people, and how much value can be gained from relationships with animals. So I cannot recommend this book highly enough. I think it's awesome. It's a book that I think would appeal to all kinds of people. So The Soul of an Octopus. Check it out if you haven't already. And you guys know all the books that I've been reading. My buddy reads this month. I am continuing on with The Warmth of Other Suns this weekend. I'm continuing on with The City of Brass this weekend. And I'm also continuing on with my I don't know if it's a reread because I can't really remember if I read it before. I thought I did when I was a kid, but I'm not remembering a whole lot of the story. So maybe this is my original read of 1984 by George Orwell, and I'm reading this in order to participate in Mel's Gone with the Book, hashtag Gone with the Book, reading challenge, which challenges us to read a book between 1900 and 1950 in each of the last weeks of September, October, November. So this is going to be my read for the last week of September. I am like 115 pages into this one right now. And for Mel's reading challenge, which I will link her informational video about it down below. Or maybe I won't, because by the time this reading vlog comes out, maybe it will be... No, I'll link it because it's going to go on in October and November, and you might want to participate if you didn't this month in the future. So you just have to read a book that was published between 1900 and 1950 from any country, any gender, doesn't matter, any type of book, and it's not particular. And Mel encouraged us to find books that were already on our shelves that may be languishing there, and this one was on my shelf, so I figured it was a great time to pick it up. So yeah, so hopefully you will enjoy some of the clips that you're going to see all about that will show Maine in the fall. Okay guys, talk later. Hey everyone, I finished another book, so I thought I would tell you about it, and that is They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. It's supposed to rhyme with okay, Takei. So George Takei is Sulu on Star Trek, and he was a little boy during World War II, and his family was forced into one of the internment camps, the U.S. Japanese American internment camps. And this graphic novel tells the story of his family's time spent in those camps. He was just, like I said, a young boy. He had a younger brother and a baby sister. They lived in California in the Los Angeles area. And he sort of felt like it was an adventure because he was so young. He didn't understand what was happening. And so his family is taken to an internment camp in Arkansas. And then because they refused to denounce Japan, because neither one of them, not because they loved Japan, but because they were American citizens. Well, at least his mother was an American citizen. His father had been in the country for a long time. Since he was a little boy, and so they didn't feel the ties to Japan. They didn't feel they should have to denounce another country that they didn't feel was their own. So they ended up being moved to a different internment camp back in California for basically people who were considered disloyal. So really interesting and informative, and I will spin the camera around now so I can show you some of the artwork. So first of all, there were 3 other folks involved in the production of this book: Eisinger, Scott, and Becker. And you can see this is the drawings are done in black and white, and they're really
they're really nice, very crisp and really understandable. There's no question about it. So it's really quite straightforward. And that's one thing I really like about sort of historical memoir type graphic novels. They usually impart the information in a very straightforward way. Really excellent graphic novel. Really enjoyed this read. It was a quick read for me. I picked it up and read it in one sitting in like an hour and a half. Really great. Highly recommend. I just wanted to finish up my September reading vlog. It is the last Saturday of the month, and I want to finish this up with what I've finished since I last checked in, and then wrap this up so I can get it posted hopefully tomorrow. So I have finished The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. This is the buddy read book that I've been reading with Doris and Patrice and Karen. It is a nonfiction book that details the Great Migration of African Americans from the southern part of the U.S. to the northern and western parts of the U.S. This all took place between the end of the Civil War and 1970. Really, after Reconstruction, once Jim Crow really started to take effect in the late 1800s, all the way through the early part of the 1900s, through the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. And Wilkerson masterfully tells this story by looking at 3 case studies. She actually interviewed many, many people, hundreds of hours of oral histories of people who had made this migration, and then narrowed it down to 3 folks that she thought best depicted 3 different paths to migrating from the south to the north, and then told their stories interwoven with the history of the time and the challenges and the prejudices and the violence that Black African Americans faced in the United States during this time period. This is really, really excellent narrative nonfiction. It reads really easily. It looks huge, but it's broken up in such a way that you continually want to read on to find out what happens. As Patrice mentioned in our discussions that we've had about this book, the only thing that would have made this book better was some inclusion of photos of the three individuals that we follow, because you wanted to know what they look like. But Patrice did just some research for us and found out that you can go onto Isabel Wilkerson's website, and that she does have photos of the three individuals. And those individuals are Robert, Ida Mae, and George. And George migrates from Florida to New York. Ida Mae migrates from Mississippi to Chicago. And Robert migrates from Louisiana to California. And each of their stories brings out aspects of the migration that you might not otherwise think about. It really shows the human side of this phenomenon, and how really so much of our current culture and society in America today was shaped by this migration. Fascinating book. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And then at the same time that we've been buddy reading that, our book that to go along with it is this middle grade book, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963, by Christopher Paul Curtis. This is obviously, you can see, won several awards. It is excellent middle grade fiction that follows this one family, the Weird Watsons of Flint, Michigan. Our main narrator is Kenny, who's the middle child. He has an older brother, Byron, and a younger sister, Joetta, or Joey as they call her. And this book is really like written sort of in episodes, so every chapter is basically another story in this family's lives. And the first part of the book is all about them living in Flint, Michigan, and the sort of shenanigans that the kids get up to. It's extremely funny and poignant, and a lot of the topics that were touched on in The Warmth of Other Sun are dealt with in this book in a way that's easily digested by kids, from, the fact that as the migration progressed on over the decades, the newer migrants were looked down upon by the migrants that had been in the North for several years. So the most recent migrants were always sort of the lowest caste. That's shown in some of these stories. The kind of prejudices that black folks faced in the North is touched on as well in this book. And then at some point in the book, the Watson family travels to Birmingham, as the title suggests. And then we get to see things like what black people had to deal with when traveling, with not knowing if hotels would accept them, if not knowing if they could stop at gas stations to get gas or snacks or food, and not knowing if they could even pull off into a rest area and safely sleep in their car, to violence that happens against black people when they finally do get to Birmingham. So this book really shows the gamut of emotions. There's funny parts, there's poignant parts, there's sad parts, there's hopeful parts. I just loved this book so much, and it was a perfect complement to The Warmth of Other Suns. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. I hope that you had a wonderful reading month in September, and I'll talk to you later.